Pittsburgh Steelers training camp is underway, and the team has held its first padded practice on Wednesday. Welcome into the Arthur Moats Experience. My name is Mark Bergin, and I'm just going to be sharing some thoughts from the Steelers' first padded practice on Wednesday. I'm recording this on Thursday morning. So on Thursday, the Steelers are practicing. They've taken the pads off, though, in advance of the Friday Night Lights event at Latrobe Memorial Stadium. So they'll be back in pads on Friday. And that's where I want to start is, will we see Broderick Jones and Isaac Seumalo in pads on Friday night? Now, Seumalo, a veteran player, I'm fine with him having a more country club style training camp. He has a soft tissue injury. They're calling Broderick Jones' injury a soft tissue injury. We found out with further reports that Broderick Jones is dealing with some sort of groin issue. Now, you don't want this to linger on into the regular season, but Broderick Jones needs the reps moving over from right tackle to left tackle in his third season. And it's a huge year for Jones, considering how he performs this year will dictate whether the Steelers pick up his fifth-year option for the 2027 season when we get faced with that May 1st, 2026. It's a huge season for both Broderick Jones entering his third year and then Troy Fautanu, your starting right tackle, entering his second year. Injuries limited Troy Fautanu to one game in the 2024 season. So you've got two very young tackles on your offensive line that you spent first-round picks on, trying to keep 41-year-old Aaron Rodgers upright. This is something where I'm going to continue to harp on this. Is this going to continue to be an issue? Now, Broderick Jones was in pads somewhat, doing individual drills, didn't do live contact drills, so he wasn't in what the Steelers call their 7 shots drill on Wednesday when they're down on the goal line and it's man-on-man at the 2-yard line, defense versus offense, full 11-on-11 live contact. Now, players like Cam Hayward also weren't participating in this. Veteran players like a Cam Hayward, like an Isaac Seumalo, I'm fine not doing this. But Broderick Jones, I want to see him back healthy. Don't rush back from that groin injury, but it's going to be absolutely vital that he's there. So the Steelers had 2 backups for both Broderick Jones. Calvin Johnson was in during the 7 shots drill, and then Spencer Anderson at left guard for Seumalo. So I'm keeping an eye on it. I'm not saying panic quite yet, but it's something to monitor as we go through training camp, as we get closer and closer to the first preseason game on August the 9th against the Jacksonville Jaguars. We're less than 2 weeks away, almost a week away from the Steelers' first preseason game. I'm recording this on the night where you'll watch the Hall of Fame game, the very first preseason game of the year, kicking off the 2025 season unofficially. Again, it's preseason, but I want to say Broderick Jones on a practice field, and he and the rest of the offensive line have to develop pretty quickly given the draft capital that you spent, not just with the 2 first-rounders, with Zach Frazier as a second-round pick, Mason McCormick as a draft pick a year ago. On the entire right side of the line, you've got second-year players. How can they gel and develop quickly considering the draft capital that you spent on each of those players? It's not flashy to talk about the big uglies. No, check that. The big sexies up front, but it is of paramount importance. And again, hopefully those injuries aren't lingering on as we get closer and closer to the start of the regular season. Keep an eye on Broderick Jones' health. Few other observations I had from reports that I read. Calvin Austin going toe-to-toe with Jalen Ramsey in 7-on-7, going back and forth a little bit. How about Cole Holcomb coming back? His first padded practice since his injury in November of 2023. Good to see him back in the mix, competing with Patrick Queen, Peyton Wilson for the Steelers' inside linebacker position. Now, there was a raucous atmosphere on Wednesday because Tuesday got rained out, and then the Pat McAfee show was in Latrobe on Wednesday as well. Some good vibes with Aaron Rodgers as well. I thought there was something very telling. Aaron Rodgers told the McAfee show he was very non-committal of his weekly appearances on the McAfee show, something where he's generated headlines on in his appearances for the last several years, particularly with the Jets And all you have to do is Google Aaron Rodgers and when they fired Robert Saleh and all the COVID stuff. But he wasn't committal to say, yes, I'll appear on this show regularly. So long as the Steelers keep winning, I think you'll have those good vibes with Rodgers and everything. But I thought he's been pretty professional since he's arrived and signed with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Something I thought was very telling is the NFL Network was at Steelers training camp in Latrobe, and Kyle Brandt from the NFL Network asked Rodgers about Terry Bradshaw's criticism of the four-time MVP. And I thought Rodgers answered the question about as well as you could have and in a professional manner as you could have instead of, creating a bunch of drama. Now, Rodgers says he doesn't like the spotlight, which I don't totally believe considering he does appear regularly on the McAfee show. Don't fault him or McAfee for this, but also the Netflix series. But Rodgers responds to Terry Bradshaw's criticism saying, Terry, like a lot of people, doesn't know me. And this is a direct quote. So he says, so he's got an idea about what he thinks about me based on what I've done, the documentary, what I've said, the Darkness Retreat, whatever the hell you want to talk about. I'd love to get to know Terry on a deeper level, and I feel like if he gave me a chance to get to know him, then we'd have a good friendship, end quote. I thought it was a great quote in how Rodgers handled that, in Rodgers' understanding and his reverence for the Steelers organization. Again, I think the good vibes continue so long as the Steelers win with Rodgers at quarterback. Rodgers represents your fifth starter in the past 5 years if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers. So really, I think whether you win or not is going to be the ultimate litmus test of how he is perceived in the city. Does he have any gas left in the tank at the age of 41? And just knowing the competitor that he is as a Super Bowl champion, as a four-time MVP, I don't think he's going to want to go out like he did with the Jets. But this is where I go back to the offensive line, though. He's coming off a season where he was working his way back from the Achilles. He was sacked 40 times in the 2024 season. The most Rodgers was sacked in a single season since 2018. The Steelers got to keep him upright. They got to keep him healthy, keep him happy, because at this point, he's a pocket passer. He doesn't have that same mobility that he had earlier on in his career. But how Rodgers has handled himself thus far as a member of the Pittsburgh Steelers, I think has been everything that you would want if you were signing a player of that caliber. Another thing to keep an eye on, I would say this, is Terry McLaurin's contract negotiations with the Washington Commanders. He's seeking an average annual salary of $30 million per season. I don't know if he'll quite get that. If I'm Washington, I've got a great second-year quarterback. I'm not doing anything to upset Jaden Daniels, but Pittsburgh's one of those teams that could be in the mix if the Commanders want to make a trade for McLaurin. I think that the Steelers are in that mix, along with the Jets, the Raiders, the Titans, and the Patriots. 29 years old, McLaurin's had at least 1,000 yards in each of the last 5 seasons. Keep an eye on that as the Steelers try to figure out what they're going to do at the wide receiver 2 position, something that we've talked about here on the Arthur Moats Experience quite a bit as we get closer and closer to the start of the preseason and the start of the regular season. Again, August the 9th is the Steelers' first preseason game. They'll be on the road against the Jacksonville Jaguars. I'll be on with Arthur Moats breaking down our thoughts from the game. Preseason, I'm telling you right now, and I'm going to repeat this again later on with Arthur. It looks like the real thing. It seems like the real thing. It almost smells like the real thing. It's not the real thing. It's like a war reenactment, but there is excitement and there are takeaways that you can have with some of the younger players trying to make the roster, trying to make a role, trying to find their niche on the team. But in terms of big takeaways for what it means for the Steelers 2025 season, you just hope that you get to the regular season healthy. My name is Mark Bergin. Hopefully you've enjoyed the Arthur Moats Experience. Let me know what you think in the comment section, what I call the Yinzer chat. Smash that like button and that subscribe button as well. And keep an eye out for more content as the Steelers have their Friday Night Lights practice in Latrobe here ahead this weekend. And then really looking forward to the weekend, the week ahead, and the start of the Steelers preseason. Again, my name is Mark Bergin. Enjoy your weekends, everybody. I'll see you next time. Until then, take care. So long, everybody.